Amalia combo has quickly become one of Pioneer's best new decks, but today I'm going to have you doing a double take because we're winning with Amalia combo in Modern.
That's right.
If you haven't been acquainted with this inconspicuous vampire lady, let me do the honors. Amalia is a black-white 2-drop 2/2 that explores whenever you gain life. The thing is, every time you explore, Amalia grows 1 power and toughness larger, and if her power reaches 20, she gets blood crazed and destroys all other creatures. Now, I'm just spitballing here, but if a card existed that both explored and gained life, we could create a loop that would get Amalia up to 20 power in 1 shot. Oh wait, Wizards printed that already? Wildgrowth Walker? Oh, sure, I guess we'll do that. So if Amalia and Walker are in play, when you gain life or explore, the vampire lady will turn the lights out.
It's dark in here.
This is match 1. Let's go. This 7 looks good to me. We'll start with a fetch land and pass the turn. Opponent with turn 1 Aether Vial. We're going to fetch end of turn to get ourselves a Temple Garden. Untap. Alright, we draw into our Walker, which means if we lead Amalia this turn and then go Innkeeper into Walker next turn, we should just have the win. Let's try it. I think we'll go Godless Shrine, shock it in, then our Amalia. I said Amelia, I meant Amalia. Aether Vial, trigger. Mutavault, 2 mana, Tide Shaper, targeting our Temple Garden. Alright, we find another Walker. Unfortunately, we are cut off of any of our green spells at this point, so we're just going to pass turn back. Opponent activates their Vial, Rishadan Dockhand into play. Vial up to 2, basic island. Opponent leading with combat. I can't block the Dockhand. Let's try flashing in the Bowmaster, see what happens. We're going to hit the Tide Shaper, and I'm going to double block this Tide Shaper, anticipating at least 1 Lord. Vial activation. There's the Master. Tide Shaper's down. We've got our Forest back. Drawn to a Court of Calling, still lacking another land. We'll start with our Innkeeper, trigger, get our treasure, pass the turn back. Opponent does nothing end of turn. Aether Vial is going to tick up to 3. 2 mana, Deeproot Pilgrimage. They're going to start churning out some Merfolk here, and no attacks. Opponent activates the Dockhand, tapping down the Temple Garden, create a Merfolk token, and we draw into an Aether Vial. They have their Aether Vial on 3, could be a Tenacious Tidebinder, which would cut off our triggers, but I think we're in a position where we have to try this here. Play out the Walker, trigger the Innkeeper, gain a life, trigger the Amalia. Opponent activates the Vial, and there's the Tidebinder. Alright, cuts off our combo here. So when the Tidebinder came down, I was an inch away from scooping the game, dropping the league, saying this deck sucked, and moving on to something else. But then, it hit me. I should just Court of Calling and get another Amalia, and do it all again. So after they attack me down to 6 life, I fire off the Court on my next turn, and it works. This is the greatest deck ever. Amalia triggers Innkeeper, I gain a life, which triggers Amalia, and I get to explore. The Explorer triggers the Wildgrowth Walker, which gains me 3 more life, and that triggers Amalia again. And we have demonstrated a loop, my friends. Sorry, fish, but you're getting fried. Alright, we are at 76 life, opponent with 1 card in hand. Just wipe their board. Let's move to our draw step. Draw our second Amalia, we knew about that. Basic Plains, Aether Vial, pass the turn. Discard a land. Opponent's Aether Vial's on 3 and 1. Take our Aether Vial up to 1. Draw another Aether Vial. We're going to start with our Apparition. We're going to eat their Deeproot Pilgrimage. Opponent activates their Mutavault. In response, they're going to add a mana, trigger the Pilgrimage. Flash in a Hexcatcher. Combat, we'll swing for 21. Opponent with a jump block. Windswept Teeth, fetch. Let's get the basic Forest and a second Aether Vial. Aether Vial's 3 and 2. No attacks, back our way. Aether Vial's ticking up, 1 and 2. Draw Eladamri's Call, and we still have a Dina in the deck, so I think that's what I'm going to go for here. Dina is a really nice addition to this deck because she allows you to kill the opponent without needing to attack. If I can trigger my loop again, Dina will drain my opponent for 1 life every time I gain life. So what I decide to do is Court of Calling for a Cenote Scout, which explores when it comes into play. This triggers the Walker, starts the loop all over again, and this time, Dina finishes the job. 7 looks okay, we'll keep it. Opponent also on a 7 card hand. Basic Island, Aether Vial. 2 can play that game. Draw Horizon Canopy. We'll start Windswept Teeth here. Fetch, Basic Plains, Aether Vial. Preserve our life total a little bit. Maybe I was supposed to play a green source for this Court of Calling. Their Vial goes up to 1. Castle Vantris, and they're passing the turn. Very suspicious. our Aether Vial. We'll take it up. Okay, we draw another land, not really what we're looking for. Shock out our Temple Garden, play out the Auriok Champion. Champion resolves. Still 2 turns off of comboing here. Opponent with a Trickster, end of turn. That is going to trigger our Auriok Champion. We'll go up to 18 life. Their Vial's up to 2. Mutavault, hit us down to 16. Back our way. Let's take our Vial up to 2 as well. And draw into a Temple Garden. Let's play out the Forest and pass the turn. No activations from our opponent. No flash threats. They do nothing. Mutavault, activate another Mutavault. They activated the wrong one, unfortunate. That is a big hit if they have a Tidebinder in their hand. Attack for 2, we'll take it, go down to 14. We're going to call end of turn while this Mutavault still has Summoning Sickness. Get Amalia, activate the Vial. Amalia into play, it's going to trigger the champion. It's going to trigger Amalia, Skyclave Apparition. I think we like that one. Yes, we'll put it... Oh, I meant to put it in my hand. It's in the graveyard now. An opponent with a Dismember, they're going to take 3 off of that. Down to 13 life. Tap, we'll keep our Vial at 2. We draw into a Walker. We're 1 mana short of the kill here. We'll play out the Walker, trigger the champion, Horizon Canopy, and we'll pass the turn. So I actually had the requisite mana to get the kill there. I have no idea why I didn't Vial in the Walker. Let's call it old age maybe? Fortunately, my blunder didn't really matter. I drew a Send Out Scout and cast it out on my next turn, and my opponent flinched. They activate their Vial, and in comes another Trickster, and with the trigger on the stack, I chord, get Amelia, and they scoop it up. A very interactive match, and we're 1-0. Match 2, we're on the play. So this opening 7 is interesting. C-Note Scout could potentially find us another land. If we find our second land, we'll be in business, but I still think we can probably do better on 6. And I like this much better. Get rid of an Innkeeper. Shock in our Godless Shrine, Aether Vial, pass the turn. Spire Bluff Canal from our opponent into a Dragon's Rage Channeler. Vial, tick it up to 1. Draw into a Bowmaster, excellent. Play out our Verdant, we'll fetch. We'll play out a Temple Garden, shock it in, flash in our Bowmaster, trigger, kill the Dragon's Rage. Second Spire Bluff from our opponent, coming back our way. Vial, tick it up to 2. Draw into a C-Note Scout. Combat, attack. Opponent's going down to 18 life. Second main, I'm going to activate the Vial now to play around a Tidebinder. I'm going to put Auriok Champion into play. I'm going to cast this C-Note Scout. Triggers, gain a life, and we'll explore. Chord of Calling on top. I think we'll keep that on top. Keep them honest. We're up to 16. Opponent Unholy Heat on the Bowmaster's end of turn, and they untap. Basic Island, Vial trigger. We're going to stay at 2. Drawn to the Chord, which we knew about, we'll move to combat. We're going to attack for 3. We're going to leave the Orc army back just in case there's a Ragavan. And we're not going to do anything else. We'll pass the turn. Opponent with the Steam Vents, shock. 2 mana for a Ledger Shredder. Sure. It's going to trigger the champion. We'll gain a life. Activate our Vial end of turn. Innkeeper into play. We'll gain a life. Trigger the Innkeeper. Make a treasure. Untap. Vial, we're going to continue to keep it at 2. Dina, not bad. That represents quite a bit of damage. We're just going to pass turn here. No attacks. And actually, better yet, activate the Vial. Put our Amalia into play. We're going to gain some life. Opponent with Unholy Heat on Amalia. They're going to have to pay 3 life to pay for that. They're down to 10 life. So we can Chord of Calling in response. Yeah, we'll Chord. Chord for 2. So I can get a Wildgrowth Walker, and I'll have a 20/20 in play. Or I can take a different route and get a Bowmaster, which I think is what I'm going to do. We're not going to try to combo kill here. My Amalia is going to be out of reach, though. And the opponent scoops. We are up a game. We're going to board in 3 Endurance and a Veil of Summer, board out, Return to the Ranks, Prosperous Innkeeper, Boromir, and C-Note Scout. Game 2, things started out looking good. I had an opening hand with all of my combo pieces, but when my opponent played out an Engineered Explosives for 2, on turn 2, I looked at my hand of all 2-drops once again, and it didn't look so hot anymore. But I have to give my opponent credit because they played this game very well. I tried to bait them to use their explosives by casting a Bowmaster, but they didn't bite. And they already had a 5/5 Murktide in play, so my creatures weren't particularly threatening anyway. A third 2-drop finally prompted them to use the explosives, but I was just too far behind. They added a few more threats, attacked for lethal, and it was on to game 3 we went. Hand looks excellent, we'll keep it. Marsh Flats, fetch, Temple Garden, shock, Aether Vial, and pass the turn. Opponent Polluted Delta, Mishra's Bauble. Look at our top card. Apparently we make them nervous. They draw a card off the Bauble, take up our Vial, draw into an Endurance, not bad. 2 mana for a Wild Growth Walker. It resolves. And now we have this Scout out of our vial to pump it at instant speed if we need to. Fetch from our opponent. Steam Vents. Shock. Ooh, they're about to get blown out. Bolt. Activate the vial. Scout. Trigger. Skyclave Apparition. Put into our graveyard. Trigger the Walker. Ouch. Card advantage. Spire Bluff Canal from our opponent. And back our way. Vial. It's going to go up to 2. Draw an Eladamri's Call. We can't cast that the way our mana is situated as it stands. We'll just move to combat. And we're just going to attack with the team. Put them down at 13. So you'll notice over the next couple of turns, I am extremely conservative with my plays. I opt to not activate my vial to play around a Tidebinder, and I don't cast spells from my hand so they don't get countered. Blue-Red Murktide is a tempo-based strategy that thrives off of their graveyard, so we're going to try to keep their graveyard slim to limit the size of their namesake. This is going to be a Murktide. It's a 5/5. If I cast out this Endurance, they're pretty priced into countering it, so I think we'll do that right here and now. We'll Endurance. Opponent with a counterspell. No surprise there. Untap. Vial stays at 2. Draw into a peatland. Combat and attack with team. I'm going to use Eladamri's Call. Get ourselves another Bowmaster. Activate the vial. I actually shouldn't have activated the vial. I should have just cast it. Flash in the Bowmaster. Opponent's down to 4 life. They're going to take 3 and go down to 1. They scoop it up. We're 2-0. So far so good. Match 3. We're on the play. 7 looks great. We'll keep it. Opponent keeps their 7-card hand. We're going to start Basic Forest into our vial, going back their way. Basic Swamp and a Thoughtseize. Well, that's unfortunate. And they take the Chord of Calling. Very interesting. Either vial will take it up. Draw into the Walker, which means we have the combo. Play out the Windswept Teeth. I can't actually cast the Amalia this turn, so I wonder if we just lead on the Walker. We'll fetch out a Godless Shrine. We'll shock that in. We'll play out the Walker. Not playing the Innkeeper to play around a Bowmaster here. Urborg. Another Thoughtseize. They're going to take Amalia this time. There she goes. And a Fatal Push killing our Walker. Vial up to 2. Okay. What a top deck. Return to the Ranks is a really cool card that we haven't seen just yet. For 2 white and X, you can return up to X creatures with 2 CMC or less from your graveyard to play. It's a really powerful effect. So we get to Vial in the Innkeeper, convoke out the Return to the Ranks, bring back Amalia and the Wild Growth Walker, and we're off to the races. Combo established. "22 power creature. We played out a land. We'll just pass turn back. Then we'll discard 4 fetch lands. See if they have a removal spell. Basic Swamp. Coming back our way. Vial. No. Keep it at 2. Draw a Chord of Calling. Play out a Temple Garden. We'll shock it in. Move to combat. Attack for 22. 2 mana for a Bowmaster. Trigger. Put us down to 102 life. Opponent blocks. And they untap. Field of Ruin. Karn the Great Creator. Sure. And they don't activate Karn for some reason. That's strange. Vial. Okay. Keep it at 2. Draw an Innkeeper. We still have 2 Bowmasters in the deck. Shock in a Temple Garden. Chord of Calling X equals 2. Orcish Bowmaster. Hit their Bowmaster. We're going to game 2. We're going to bring in 2 Skyclave Apparition and a Veil of Summer. Board out Prosperous Innkeeper. Return to the Ranks and Chord of Calling. 7 looks good. We'll keep it. Leyline of the Void. Not surprised. Opponent led with the Swamp. We'll do the same. Into our Aether Vial. Cycle a Troll. Get a Basic Swamp. Play out the Swamp. We knew about that. Back our way. Aether Vial will tick it up. Draw into an Auriok Champion. Play out our Windswept Teeth. And we're going to play out another Vial. Demolition Field from our opponent. Vial up to 1. Vial up to 2. We draw into a Dina. So we have a kill as long as we can assemble the pieces here. We should have it next turn. We'll just pass turn back. As long as they don't Karn us. Basic Swamp. They do nothing else. End of turn, we're going to put one of these Amalias into play. Untap. Vials are going to trigger. Vial up to 2. Other one stays on 2. Draw Marsh Flats. We'll play that out. We're going to fetch. Temple Garden. We'll shock that in. Windswept Teeth. We'll add a green mana with this one. Get a Basic Forest. Opponent gets a Swamp. Temple Garden. Shock that in. 2 mana for a Walker. Opponent with a Fatal Push on Amalia. It's going to trigger. We're going to respond. Auriok Champion. Dina. It's going to trigger the champion. We'll gain a life. trigger Amalia and Dina. We'll keep Amalia where she is. Opponent loses a life, and we're going to Court of Calling in response. X equals 2, get another walker, trigger the champion, trigger Amalia. Here we go again. Three 0. This is match 4. We're on the draw. This hand, we can't keep this, we'll mulligan. And 6 is fine, we'll keep. And we'll ship the Horizon Canopy. See what we're up against. Blooming Marsh, looking like Yawgmoth. This Auriok Champion should go a long way. Auriok Champion is a pain for Yawgmoth decks to deal with. So much so that I made a short explaining how to play around the card if you're playing Yawgmoth. Protection from black means that Grist and Yawgmoth can't target it, and its static ability completely invalidates the Yawgmoth combo, which requires creatures to repetitively enter play. In this day and age, the only way for them to get rid of the champ is if they have Walking Ballista in their list, which is less popular nowadays, or to put Yawgmoth or Grist under an Agatha's Soul Cauldron and bestow their abilities onto a green creature. Let's see what happens. Draw second champion, which is pretty funny. We'll play that out. Maybe I was supposed to lead on the Innkeeper, that was silly. Verdant Catacombs will pass turn back. 3 mana for a Grist, plus Grist, 2 champion triggers, we're up to 21. Blooming Marsh, attack for 2. Down to 19, we'll fetch end of turn. Overgrown Tomb tapped. We draw into a Dina, which is pretty good. We're about a turn off of using that one. Dina is capable of breaking this game wide open, but I don't want to expose her to Grist, so I need to get rid of the Planeswalker first. Unfortunately, the presence of Young Wolf means that I can't attack the Planeswalker down with my Auriok champions. They use Court of Calling to find a Strangleroot Geist at the end of turn, which means they have assembled their card drawing combo. They draw 4 cards, and we gain a bunch of life, but my opponent doesn't seem to care. Agatha's Soul Cauldron enters the battlefield, and another Court of Calling for X equals 0 puts Walking Ballista into their graveyard. Cauldron eats the Ballista and bestows the Ballista's abilities onto their creatures. This allows them to get rid of our Auriok champions, and from this point forward, the game is lost. Unfortunately, Game 2 went exactly like this one, and we wound up losing the match, along with our undefeated record. The end of this league was very anticlimactic, for us at least. We had the honor of being paired into Amulet Titan, one of my 2 least favorite decks to play against online, and over the course of the 2 games, they played with themselves a bunch. I like to call it Master, boy, you best shut your mouth, and 15 minutes later, they had back-to-back turn 3 kills. Awesome. But regardless, this deck felt really powerful and viable to compete in Modern. The designer of the deck, Psych Fortag, has been crushing it online with this list. And I really enjoy this style of deck, so I'll likely play it again at some point in the future, because it was a good time. Thank you for tuning in and watching until the end. That's a big deal, so thank you. I will see you all again very soon, but until then, you know the deal. Be well, my friend.